What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the 4040 Vision podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, let's hear a quick word from our presenting sponsors. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of 4040 Shorts from the 4040 Vision podcast. This is our short form format where we cover a sports or sports history topic in about 10 to 15 minutes. Today's topic is very topical, and that is, of course, Damian Lillard and the concept of loyalty in the NBA. So we live in this era of player empowerment, and it's really coming to a head with the Dame situation and him trying to force a move away from the Portland Trailblazers. He's been with the team for about 11 years, and he's taken them to great heights, but if you ask him and you ask most folks, they've hit their ceiling with him and this current iteration of the team. We know that he made the conference finals once, and he's made a couple of deep playoff runs, but he kept running into the buzzsaw that was the mid-2010s Golden State Warriors, the KD Warriors, the Steph Curry Warriors, of course. And I think at this point, he just wants to win a ring, and he's finally trying to flex his player power to get where he wants to go. The question is, at what point does his loyalty, which has always been touted as something special in the NBA because he's always held on to the dream in Portland, he's always kind of marketed himself as a one-team guy. So what point does that loyalty get rewarded in the NBA? So before we talk about that, let's talk about Lillard's place in franchise history for the Blazers. A lot of folks have been talking about he's the greatest Blazer of all time, and that he deserves to move wherever he wants to go because, of course, he's the greatest Blazer of all time and he has that special place. Some other folks have pushed back. Some NBA historians have pushed back and said that he's still behind Clyde Drexler, and some even have him behind Bill Walton, who was great for Portland but wasn't there for very long. But in his 10 or 11 years with the Blazers, Dame has been an all-star 7 times, which is no small feat in a West that always had incredible point guards. He was All-NBA first team in 2018, and 6 times he was All-NBA second or third team, which to me is just as impressive. Obviously, it just means you're one of the 6 best guards in the entire league, which is quite the achievement. The big thing recently was he was named to the NBA's 75th anniversary team, which raised some eyebrows, but the fact is he was named there, and that it is what it is. He also won an award called Teammate of the Year in 2021. I've never heard of that, but yeah, he was the Teammate of the Year in the NBA in 2021. In terms of his other franchise rankings, he's 3rd in games played, 2nd in minutes played, 2nd in field goals attempted, 2nd in assists, 1st in free throws, and of course, 1st in three-pointers. And when looking this up, it was kind of funny, and it shows you how different the game has been. But Clyde Drexler is 2nd to him in total points, but he has taken literally 5 times more three-pointers than Clyde Drexler. And it's about 2,400 to 450 for Drexler. And as a result, because simple math, 3 is more than 2, he has about 1,300 more points than Clyde despite playing in fewer games. So with his standing as the 2nd best Blazer of all time, this maybe the best Blazer of all time, and all that he's done for the franchise, which he hasn't won a ring, but he's tried. Does that matter? Does his place in franchise history even matter? And a lot of folks make the common argument that because players can get cut or traded at any time, why should they be loyal to teams? I think this applies more in the NFL because of a lack of guaranteed contracts. So oftentimes you see NFL players sign massive, $80, $100 million contracts, but it's all backloaded and there's no injury guarantees, and you could get cut in the second year and you miss out on the $50 million of that $100 million. So that's a different argument. In the NBA, the contracts are guaranteed. If you sign on the dotted line for $100 million, unless there's a team option to it or a player option to it, you're going to get that money regardless of what happens. And I think if we're being realistic, if we're not being idealistic like a lot of folks are, well, the NBA, the teams have all the power, so why should players be loyal? The fact is, there's always going to be a power imbalance, because even in a league, in a sport where fans root for individual players, they almost treat it like tennis more than a team sport. That's why you have LeBron stands, you have Jordan stands, you have KD stands, you have Westbrook stands that will follow guys to the team of whichever team they happen to be playing for that year. The teams will always have more power, more brand recognition, more staying power, of course, because a player's career could be 10, 15, even 20 years, but these franchises have been around for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. So the franchise will always be there, even if the player is not. So there's always going to be a power imbalance. And to be fair, the Blazers have done plenty for Lillard, right? They've tried to build a contender around him. They're making moves. They're not always the smartest moves, but they always have to deal with the fact that they are a small market team. And because of their small market status, they're not going to attract these big name free agents. And part of it may be Dame's, you can call it hubris, maybe, not wanting to recruit guys. And he's always talked about, I'm not going to go out and recruit a super team. I'm not going to try to get guys to come here just to win a ring. But it's like, maybe you should have, dude. If this is the case where you're exercising your power and you want to leave, maybe you should have exercised some of that recruiting ability and kind of pitching and selling Portland as a team and as a city to some of these unhappy superstars that we've seen out there. So in the 11 years that Dame has been in Portland, they've made the playoffs 8 years. So they made the playoffs 8 years in a row from his second year to about 3 years ago. They had 3 50-win seasons. I think their peak was 54 wins at some point. So they've tried, and they've been good. They've never been a great team, but they've been a very, very good team that, again, has made the Western Conference Finals in a loaded West. So after all this, at the end of the day, they have to do what's right for the franchise, and they have to get the best deal available. And let's also not forget that they have paid this man a little over $230 million so far in his career. He's also been able to leverage his brand recognition and his talent into a number of endorsements. So he's made plenty of money, the majority of which has come from the Blazers. So their loyalty to him has been through these big old contracts that they've been more than happy to offer to him and paying him the max and the super max and all that. And if you look at his contract, this year he's scheduled to make $45 million, next year $48 million, and then the last 2 years of his current deal, he's scheduled to make $58 million and $63 million. So he's not going to cry broke. He's not going to cry broke. He's not going to be wanting more money at some point. So the team has taken care of him in that aspect. At the same time, I'm not in the business of defending owners and teams over players, because I will always side with a millionaire over a billionaire, because no matter how much money Dame Lillard makes in his NBA contract, it will never be able to touch the net worth or the money that his team ownership has. But the goal of sports is to win. And the Blazers have to do what's best for them to win as they enter this new era where they have an incredible young player in Shaedon Sharpe, who has a ton of potential, and a guy that they just drafted in Scoot Henderson that people are talking about as if he's going to be this generational superstar, this game-changing superstar that is a true alpha, just like Dame. Dame is a true alpha as well, but he's 12 years younger than Dame, or maybe even more than that, and he's a lot cheaper than Dame, obviously, because he's on a rookie contract. So the team has to do what's best for them, and they have to do not just what's best for them now, but what's best for them for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So I understand why Dame wants to go to the Miami Heat. They have a winning organization. They have a championship-ready team. They were just literally in the NBA Finals this year, and they've been a constant contender. So I understand the appeal. And we've seen plenty of guys force their way to their preferred destination in recent years. Anthony Davis did it to the Lakers by telling the Celtics he wasn't going to play. But in that situation, the Lakers had the assets to afford Anthony Davis. They were able to give the Pelicans a fair enough trade that they turned around and turned into Zion Williamson. And there was a bunch of young players that some have panned out, some have not. But it was a fair trade at the time. And then this summer, we had Bradley Beal force his way to the Phoenix Suns, but that was literally only because he had a no trade clause in his contract, which for some reason Dame was not able to get, but Bradley Beal got. Go figure. So Dame is trying to use his leverage, and also he's threatening not to play if he gets traded somewhere else. But I think all of that is just a leverage play. I think he's too aware of his reputation as this loyal, down-to-earth guy. I think he doesn't want to ruin that reputation. And just to get down to it, I think he loves and respects the game of basketball too much to actually sit out if he gets traded to Utah or Orlando or somewhere else that he doesn't want to go. I think there's a few guys that fit that mold. That people talk about Kevin Durant doing that all the time, that even when he asked for a trade from the Nets, he still wouldn't sit out if he didn't get that trade. When he didn't, he still played because he respects the game and he loves the game of basketball. And I think Dame is in that category. So if Portland does end up making the deal with Miami, it won't be because they've given up this fight or they've allowed Dame to exercise his leverage. I think it will just be because there were no other options or no other better options because of Dame's age and the massive contract and the massive wages that he'll be making over the next couple years. So ultimately, loyalty is great. When a player is loyal, it's amazing. We love a one-team guy. We love players that are true franchise legends that stay with the team they drafted, won a ring with the team they were drafted to. And that's why people give rings that Giannis won recently, that Dirk won recently, even Steph Curry with his first and fourth ring. They give that more weight than some of these quote unquote super team rings, right? So the loyalty is great. Fans love it. Players love it. I'm sure they respect it to some degree. But teams will always be loyal to you only as long as it's in their best interest. And right now, it's not in Portland's best interest to be loyal to Dame Lillard and to give in to his demands to trade him to the Miami Heat for 50 cents on the dollar. It's just a fact. And again, as I said, if he does end up going to Miami, it won't be because Portland caved to these demands. It will be because it was the best offer on the table. So regardless of how this plays out, there might be some hurt feelings in the end if Dame is traded somewhere he doesn't want to go. But as I said, he respects the game of basketball too much to not play, and he'll always be a Portland legend. And it may take some time for the wounds to heal, but ultimately the relationship will be fine. He'll be inducted into, the Ring of Honor or whatever you want to call it. He'll have his number retired as one of the best players in franchise history, and he'll always have deep, deep ties to this city, that state, and those fans. And nothing will be able to change that, even if he's asking for a way out or trying to force his way out. That's it for today's podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed that. Please make sure to subscribe to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Make sure to leave us a review and make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the major social media platforms. We're doing some cool things on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts and all that. So make sure to follow us there as well. Thanks, y'all. Peace out.